Hello there, this is Seaman from the Heritage Service here, and this is our virtual walk for the Walk Festival. As you know, we're having to do something different this year, and this is going to be not just different because we're doing it virtually, but because I've introduced my colleague Steve here.
Steve. Hello, I'm Steve.
Steve is one of the researchers and archaeologists who's been working on a lot of our projects, particularly this one, which will be relevant to our walk today. So let's hope that you got up to Butts Brow. Car park is just down there. We're perched just to the, what would you say this was? West of the Beehive Plantation itself. And we'll just talk a little bit about why we're here and why Butts Brow, in our opinion, is an incredibly important site for Eastbourne. So our first bit will be, I want you to walk around the site at Butts Brow and hopefully listen to this at some point when you're going around. Steve, do you want to tell us a little bit about the site that we've been looking at over the last few years?
Yeah, so Butts Brow, the first excavation was up here in 2016 with the plan to try and get a date, and it turns out it's an early Neolithic earthwork monument, dates to about 3600 BC, and the Neolithic is the end of the Stone Age, so it's basically we've got a Stone Age monument. This is one of the first in the country, and you can probably see behind me and Joe, you've got a bit of a bank there, and the ditch where it's lower there. That's why it's an earthwork. You've got a ditch and then a bank, and over in the background you can possibly see you've got Combe Hill, which we'll be going to later, which is a broadly contemporary, also causewayed enclosure.
Brilliant, yeah. The reason why we get so excited about this site, which I know doesn't look that exciting, is because we've actually been privileged to excavate it and look into it. You may have been up yourselves and had a look at us this summer, socially distanced excavating, and we've found these ditches which aren't continuous around the site. They are broken ditches, which is why these sites are given this name, a causewayed enclosure. I'm not sure that actually is right, is it? They're not actual causeways, are they? Some of these are just breaks and ditches. Yeah. So they're not all entrances anyway. Yeah. So you have a bank on the inside, then you have broken ditches, and some of them lead to entrances, I suppose. It's
one of these ones where old names kind of stick. They were originally causewayed encampments because they thought people were living here, and then over the from the 30s that was the kind of idea, and now it's changed to them possibly being ritual monuments, but we're not entirely sure what they were doing up here really.
No, which is a good start, isn't it? But it is an important site. We found in the ditches themselves, which are about 2 metres across and well over, 1.7 metres deep. Like, so they're quite big ditches cut into the chalk itself, which when you're thinking about doing that with an antler pick and some bone implements and flint itself, it's really hard work. It's hard enough to dig them out with modern tools. So they were digging these ditches. They didn't leave them open for years, we don't think, either, do they?
They're different per site. Some of them it looks like they're leaving them open, keeping them clean. You can see the chalk's been weathered, but then they're purposefully backfilling them and then digging into the backfill, making pits, putting objects in them and then resealing them up again. So you find these pits dug into the backfill with flint, pottery, things like that in, that have been curated and placed there on purpose. So each site seems to be different with what they're doing there, but their general themes running through all of them, which is also very interesting. And
it's bizarre though, isn't it? Really?
Very
it's bizarre to dig this huge sort of monument and then backfill it quite quickly.
Yeah, because they're thought to have been in use for about 200 years.
Right, so that would explain as well where at the bottom of the ditch here, well just behind us over there this year, we found a layer which was really compacted over the top, wasn't it, of chalk. It looked like the bottom of the ditch itself, but actually it wasn't the bottom, it was where it had weathered. It had been partly backfilled and weathered, and underneath that we found what actually, and I'm not the the biggest fan of flint, I would say, but this was one of those moments where you are touching stuff when it, even for archaeologists who've done a lot of work in the field, when you sort of expose these layers of flint that we found underneath, which had literally been smashed up and thrown in, we were literally the next people to touch them in 5,500 years. And that doesn't happen that much because you get used to it. But that was one of those things, even though the artefacts, if you like, weren't tools or anything, it was just broken flint. It was so sharp and fresh that it was one of those moments, wasn't it?
Yeah, definitely.
The other thing about this site that we found this year was we were up just sort of pointing up past the camera there, in what's called a terminus, an end of a ditch, which then had another pit next to it, we think now, don't we? But in this ditch, in this pit we found over there, it had that same sort of thing, didn't it? It had been cut and then it had been partially filled, and then we had a post hole actually put in it.
Into the backfill,
yeah.
So it had been filled in, and then they dug in and put a post hole in, which was quite a sizable timber that had gone in.
So what do you think that could be, Steve?
No idea. Possibly a totem pole.
I love that. I love the fact you said that. I would say that as well. We have no proof of it whatsoever, but it's something structural, isn't it? It was where a post had gone, and we found flint flakes in there as well, and the post packing around it. So it wasn't just a pit; it was a post hole. And
even me saying timber, we don't know whether it was worked or not. Probably wasn't.
Something, lump of something. But it is a really exciting site. The other thing that makes this really exciting, and this is a bit of a stop press, I think, is that I don't know of any other sites in the country where there are two causewayed enclosures so close to each other. So is this like a first for the UK?
We need to look into this more. There are other ones that are kind of close to each other, like in West Sussex you've got Berry Hill and Berkhale. They're walkable between each other, but this is a 15-minute walk between the two of them, whereas the others, there's a couple of, I think it's about a mile in between them, so they're not as close as these, and you can see people from one to the other. So I'm not aware of another one quite like this, but again, we need to do more research. There's around 70 causewayed enclosures in the UK. Obviously we haven't looked at every single one of them yet, but that's part of the ongoing research, is looking for other comparisons. Brilliant.
Right, so we'll probably leave it at that for now, because you're going to want to carry on with your walk. What I suggest you do is walk around the Beehive Plantation itself, so the woods in the middle, because you're walking around the circuit of the enclosure then, and then we will head off up the hill there, up the path, and then eventually up to Combe Hill. But you'll have your digital map in front of you.
It's worth noting on the way to Combe Hill, which again dates to about sort of 3500 BC, because it's possibly a little bit later than this one. There's quite a few late Neolithic, early Bronze Age barrows up there. They're the round barrows. Quite often they've got holes in the top. This is where Victorians dug through the top down to try and find the treasure. So it shows that this landscape has been very important even after the Neolithic, at the point where metal starts coming in with the beaker people and bronze and all of that. So we'll probably film a couple of those as we go up. So, but do pay attention on the way. It's not just monument to monument. This whole landscape's been important as well, particularly the barrows.
And I think we'll also talk a little bit about why these two monuments might be facing each other, because there's a big valley in between us, and that could be a clue.